Hey everyone, so my name's Lily and I'm the book blogger behind Utopia State of Mind, and today I'm going to tell you all of my 5-star middle grade reads of 2020. In 2020 I read 9 middle grade 5-star books and I only have a few of them with me, so the majority of them I'll just be putting in the cover up over here. The first 5-star read that I read for middle grade was The Girl and the Ghost. This tackles toxic friendships and forgiveness and just friendship in general, and I felt that this was such a great middle grade because it was like fantastical, but also I think that in general the idea of toxic relationships and toxic friendships, I just want to read so many more books about this, like in any genre basically, because it kind of deals with at the heart of this loneliness and forgiveness, and also what do we do when we're in the middle of this kind of toxic friendship. Next one is Paulo, Santiago, and the River of Tears. I love Paula. She is just such a space-obsessed girl, and it's a story of friendship and first crushes and jealousy, but also super fantastical all at the same time, right? It just wraps up all of these different themes. And I also really loved that it touches a little bit on this clash between religion and science. So this idea of, because Paula is so obsessed with space and her mom really isn't and doesn't really understand it in that sense, so it talks about that. It also talks about prejudice and privilege as well. So Paula Santiago is just such a beautiful, comprehensive middle grade that just talks about all of these issues in such a beautiful way, and I can't wait for the sequel. The next one is The Magic Fish. This has to be one of my favorite books of 2020. I just love it so much. It's a middle grade graphic novel and it's queer Asian as well, but it just talks about fairy tales and the main character struggling with coming out potentially and with his family, and about just not knowing like how to come out and if he should. And so in general it's like about that action and about all of that kind of plot movement. It's also about exploring the past with his mother and his mother's own past, but it's also just about how we find pieces of ourselves in stories and how they impact and influence and create the worlds around us, and also the possibilities around us are inspired by stories and how they give us the bravery to see ourselves in the stories and to also imagine new possibilities. I love it so much. It's got to be one of my favorite reads of graphic novels, middle grade queer books. Like, it is just such a hit run for me. The next one is Never After the 13th Fairy. I was so happy that this had adoption rep, so like, yeah. But anyway, I love how Philomena is such a bookworm and how she's just so obsessed with books, and like it just made me instantly relate to her, because I think we can all agree that I'm obsessed with books, and you probably are too, because that's why you're watching this. But it just combines Philomena's character, who is just so quirky and so wry as well, with this world of fairies and fairy tales, and also the importance of stories and the importance of telling your story. There's just so much lyrical goodness as well in it. Like, it's such a great book, and I really ended up surprising myself by loving it that much. The next one is Amari and the Night Brothers. I've talked about how much I love Amari a lot now, like on the internet and on my blog, but I just loved how it tackles prejudice and how we can fight these expectations. It kind of not only uses Amari, so Amari is this precious black girl who is trying to find her brother. So it not only tackles Amari and the racism against Amari as a black girl, but also her identity as a magician. And so it uses the fantasy lens of magicians whose presence and whose behavior is considered illegal and dangerous, like before you even do anything essentially, and how we're judged before we even do anything. To also talk about racism, and that connection was just so fabulous to see. And it also deals with how we change other people's opinions and perceptions as well. I loved The Mighty Heart of Sunny St. James. It was just one of those books that has so much going on, but I loved every element of it. So Sunny just got a new heart. Sunny is trying to figure out if she's queer, and dealing with like the homophobia and dealing with the potential coming out. And also Sunny's dealing with the reemergence of her mom. So she's dealing with so many different things. And I just loved watching Sunny as a character grow, and as a character figure out all of these different issues and all of these different things together. And the family and the friendships and the relationships, like the character relationships were just so endearing and emotional in this one, and yeah, this is why one of the reasons why I loved it. I've had Ghost Squad on my radar since before it even released, and I finally got to it this year. I'm so happy that I actually read it. Sometimes those things can kind of get away from me, but it didn't get away with me here. And what I love about it is family, ghost hunting, friendship. Like, it has all of these different things that are so beautifully woven together and so beautifully explored in Ghost Squad, and it was just such a beautiful, precious book. I listened to the audiobook and I definitely recommend it because the narration was really great. I'm not a huge Studio Ghibli fan, not because I don't like it, just because I've not watched actually that many Studio Ghibli movies, but recently I watched Kiki's Delivery Service and I thought that was very, very cute. And Eva Evergreen's Semi-Magical Witch definitely gives me that vibe. It has such a whimsical and detailed setting, and Eva in general was just so precious, and her journey to kind of merge her ideas of magic and her ideas of like non-magic as well into what we see in the title, semi-magical, were just really precious and also really endearing and emotional. And I could just see this because like it would be so cool if this was a movie, kind of like Kiki's Delivery Service, but it was just really, really precious, and I kind of knew I was gonna love Eva Evergreen before I read it. And then my hold came in at the library and I just ended up loving it so much when I was reading it, and I can't wait for the next one. And the last 5-star middle grade book I read in 2020 was Arusha and the Song of Death. In general, I've loved the Arusha series. This is only the second one in the series, but I really loved the first one. Or I guess what impacted me the most about Arusha, this one, was it was just so... It had such great themes and the way that they were explored, where Shah is discussing how we can be judged for our lineage without getting to know us, and how that feels, and also how it feels to like watch our friends go through that. And also what I loved about Arusha is it talks about stories being in the wrong hands, and the idea of stories, and also the idea of authorities. Like, do we trust the people who are telling us these stories, that they're telling us the true stories, and what happens if we realize that that's not, and like how do we envision our own story and what happens when we're kind of miscast in that story. So that brings me to the end of all of my 5-star middle grade reads in 2020. I know that this video was a little bit shorter than the other videos in this series, but I really love these middle grade books, and reading more middle grade books in 2021 is definitely something I want to do just because of how precious this was. And I also love listening to middle grade books on audiobook because it just feels so nostalgic. So if you had a favorite 2020 read of middle grade, or even like 2021, right? If you have a favorite middle grade read, definitely let me know below. I want to read more and more of them as we go on. And I will leave all the links for the books and my social media links down below as well. I hope you had a really great time watching this, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!